Good evening, guys. Sorry for tardiness. This week we read about recruitment and selection and the differentiation between selecting a proper candidate for your organization and how we transition into it. So when we look at employee life cycle, employee like employment life cycle, I should say, we based it on the entire organizational cycle structure and an employee's cycle within an organization, which consists of recruitment, selection, training, development, evaluations, and back into the same cycle over again. So you get to see a systematic structure in which an employee will come in and they will determine based on their credentials and process of admission, which will be the recruitment. And then we go into the selection, which is a more procedural aspect of it, where you go sequentially go into the selection, where you have a pool of candidates which you would choose as the selected group, which would fit into that specific position. Now, during that selection process, you would actually just have a pool already of those candidates who do have the eligibility, but then you shave it a little bit more into a set of employees which will fit your organization better. Also, there comes training. Training is the learning aspect, the technical aspect. I would say this is more the external skill sets in which a candidate would actually adjust to the organization. Now, those would be specific tasks rather than just internalized, which is more the development. This could be career development, it could be internalized development, where an individual will step into more of I would say a higher important role in the organization, which is just more than just the daily task. And then we go into evaluations, which is performance evaluation, seeing how well they're doing. It is important. Even I believe Kenzie A 2019 in the video she indicated that you will need to evaluate, especially during the probationary time, and then eventually if the employee doesn't fit in, they'll most likely get taken out, or there will be a time when the employee don't longer fit in, which will, you can see that already happening, turnovers or even retiring. That cycle will come up again in which you will find a replacement for that candidate. So moving on to the next one, summarize and synthesize the learning material. So I believe that a lot of the learning materials repeat themselves, except for there's a few that give you a more details. I would say they're all based on the structure, recruitment, selection, which is basically identifying how you find it, but certain such as mature indicated that there's application review, black background checks, where it's more of a legal aspect and a legal well, the legal process of obtaining and checking for candidates, as well as application review, how to construct a proper application, job posting, which is essential. You have to have a headlines, narrative, needs, benefits, etc., etc. Then you move on to the interviews, which all of the authors and all of the presenters have stated. That includes opening, overview, experience, self-evaluation, behavioral, along that line, but some of them differentiate, which you will see in Kenzie. She indicates more of a matter of selection of requirement for that job, skill sets, and the kind of interviews you can do. She stated that you can do phone interviews, group interviews, video conference interviews, which I have not actually seen. I think that'll be more discomforting for a candidate and a potential applicant, especially when it comes to overwhelming them. But I guess that could work also, as well as the in-person interview, which is the traditional one or modernized. And she transitioned more into when to hire and wait to hire. So you do see a concept in a sequential concept where there is the main universal aspect components to hiring, but some of them go into further details. Like we have Thompson in a video 2019 who actually stated that there is a internal versus external recruit, which the other authors didn't really go into that much. Internal is simple. You have already a candidate within the organization, which is, qualified to take over the spot of another candidate who may have left or quit or been fired due to poor performance. And then you go to organizational size, which would be a factor because there is the external one also. I did not mean to skip that one. The external recruitment, which is more of a colder and more difficult task because you're dealing with employees that you've never met before. So you have to go through the whole process of obtaining those information. So sort of like my old previous job where we had to recruit or we had to see new patients versus old patients. So yeah, that comes to the type of recruitment, two branches of recruitment, and then we go to the organizational size, which the factors of selecting that specific candidate, because organizational size will have a big impact on the kind of people that will work there, because there are some who are more inclined to work in small organizations or others who are more used to working with big organizations with more team members. So also you want to know budget wise, which was described actually by Mohesha. Well, she indicated that budget is essential because you do have to have a certain amount of hiring money and money you can spend on hiring, because each candidate is a potential source of revenue and they will build or destroy your organization. But you also want to save enough also to have a backup candidate just in case if the one that you initially hired may have not like the position or they just don't fit in properly with the personality. So you want to have that extra money on the side, which is another thing, budget. Going to availability position, company growth rate and reputation. Now, each of the authors have given their own version of it, but I do think that Mashua in 2018 had a more better set when she described, I think it was her, described branding, or what's that? No, that was Kinsey. He described more of a brand. You have to have a brand for your organization to see if they're gonna fit. Now, even though some of these authors go more directly into it, you do see a general outline that is more sequential and that you could find in each of them. So you have to know how your candidate works. So what are two strategic recruitment methods that can be used? Now, the recruitment methods. Now, they do mention that the best way to receive and best way to obtain it is through a social media platform. You could use Indeed, a third vendor, which was mentioned also by Thompson. A third vendor could be selected, and that third vendor would be good at recruiting and also do background check, which also was indicated by Mo Hishwa. She did indicate that, having a third vendor or consulting firm, which is something that we could do ourselves, which will be our psychology, we do the extension background background research, as well as selecting and following the guideline between ethical laws and federal law too, as well as there was a virtual recruitment process, which is very good, which is the same thing also systematically established while recruiting, follow the KSAO necessary for specific job types, as well as personality necessary to function. And you can find most of those postings. And also develop the proper application package. They need to know what they want to work with. I think Kusher had the best one, especially with job posting. And why is it better to create one, which was interview selection evaluation. You state what the job's going to be, job description, benefits of the job description, benefits of the job itself, expected hours, and direct explanation of what's necessary to get the job performed and efficiently as possible, and the expected personality and the expected fit. So also you need to establish authority, who they're going to be working under, and then you go into training and etc. as the life cycle generalizes. So what are two evidence-based methods used to select? the most qualified employees. So, me personally, I would go with Mahisha. I like hers better because when it comes to selection, right, it would be first job posting. You need to have to posting a job, which is 21st century. We have so much technology, so you better find the best social platform to obtain as much qualified candidates as possible, and then you proceed to the like recruitment, which is where you get a pool of those candidates, and then you select which one fits you better. Then you application review. We need to know past history. We need to know, you know, experience, self-evaluation, behaviors. We need to know everything before that, as well as just previous references, which there are some legal manners to it, and there's difficulties, but you could go into that later. Selection tests. There are certain tests that could help you determine whether they are comprehensible when it comes to writing, whether they can actually keep up with the, you know, kind of skills that will be necessary to be done, communicative skills, as well as, additional language comprehension or tools that are necessary to do that specific job. Also, self-evaluation, behaviors, and also closing. Then selection tests, which is more of the personal trait. We want to see their fit in the team, eliciting applicants, and just evaluating their traits. And we go back to reference check also, which is same thing back to the interviews. So that will be better. And last one will be the offer. You want to give them an offer, verbalize that offer first, and then have it established on paper, because it depends on how well your candidate is and how much they will fit. So first thing first, don't select, the most convenient one that's just qualified. You want to make sure that your candidate also is the best candidate for your company, but you also want to balance the amount of money you're spending or the amount of money you're going to invest, which is the truth. It's an investment in that candidate, as well as checking background checks, which was already mentioned, much like the references, but this time background check is more into the law aspect of it. So I mean, you could apply for the same standards, but it just will be more hands-on to it. But we can see another one, which was slightly better, I believe, just slightly better, which was Thompson's. Thompson's gave more of an understanding of the concept, because they give you the types of recruitment that you could do, internalize versus externalize, which we explained earlier. The virtual recruitment process, which includes job analysis. Job analysis is a systematic review to establish why you're recruiting it. So then you're going to look into the job market. You compare certain skills and how much on average you're going to spend on those position, how replaceable is that position, as well as understanding different factors to that job, which you can find in the job market. Then you go to comprehensive job description, salary, etc., package, which they all kind of give you, explain it. Sourcing for talent. We should develop a target for reaching the candidates with a preferred skill. You need to target that specific skill. Optimizing the apply process, which is the need to capture a job application, collective space, so on, applicants and tracking system to keep track of it, because this will be best when you have certain employees which would slightly missed, and the next candidate, the runner-up candidates could replace the current candidate that you have right now. So always have one in case, just in case, to have that down pat, so that way you can save yourself some time and save yourself some money. Then you have the selection and the process of recruitment, which is self-explanatory, truth be told. I'm pretty sure I repeat it constantly. You have the skill set and assessment days, interviews with the finalists, and also making the choice. So we have interviewing the finalists, which is where this is the only thing I have not actually covered. Interview with the finalist indicates that you just have your specific candidate, and now it's time to fit them in. Now, the next round will be for the necessity and candidates' personal level, and depending on the numbers of candidates and seniority positions. So, if they are just in, you know, they're doing well, but they're not in a position where you can put them seniority, you put them on a beginner's level, entry level. And then there's making a choice. The ideal fill organization with someone who could fit that platform. Or not all choices are definite. We did indicate in the employment life cycle that there are certain individuals which would not actually make all the development. They're not going to reach all the cycle, but or they might reach the cycle, but just faster than the other candidates.